In the video game industry, we value technology more than we should, I feel. And I know that might sound weird because obviously in video games, technology is a really big deal since it's an interactive medium, gameplay, graphics, it's important. But I feel it's valued too much over design and, vision and artistry. And just, kind of get across what I'm trying to say here is that I feel in other mediums like movies and music, the first and foremost thing is, like, for example, movie, like the big thing people talk about is the story, the script, the acting, not the production quality. That's, stuff is talked about in reviews as well, but it's usually valued less than the story, where in a game, the gameplay and the balance and whatnot would be the similar thing to that. Today I saw a thread on NeoGAF where people were wondering if gaming had hit a pinnacle because the newer consoles aren't really allowing more freedom than the past, like the PS3 360 generation and the Wii, sorry. And I found that really strange because as far as I'm concerned, we haven't really opened up that many new possibilities in game design since really the PS2, Xbox, GameCube generation. Now, a lot of people are probably saying, what? That's crazy. We've jumped, power has increased so much since then. That's insane. And yes, there probably have been a few important developments in game design that I'm not thinking of right now, thanks to that new technology. But let me give you a few examples of what I mean. I'm not going to talk about virtual reality for the sake of this. We're specifically talking about since the PS2 generation to the PS3 to the PS4 and all the other consoles in that in between. And maybe I'll talk about Oculus Rift and other stuff like that later. But for now, here's an example of what I'm going to talk about for this comparison. A lot of people know me. I'm a huge Souls fan. When I played Demon's Souls for the first time on the PS3, loved it, quickly became one of my favorite games. But the point of this is, there really isn't anything in Demon's Souls that couldn't have been done on the PS2. The game doesn't, you'd have to lower the graphics, you'd have to tone them back, obviously. But as far as what the game is, there isn't particularly a lot of enemies on screen. The game is rather slow-paced. The combat, while good, isn't, about crazy effects or anything. It's, I can't really, even the online probably could have been done on PS2. I was a huge SOCOM 2 player on the PS2, and that game was very fast-paced, 16-player games, very high stakes, die quickly gameplay. Demon's Souls, you can die quickly, but it's still much more of a slower paced game, and it's maxed at 4 players per game. So even the online probably could have been done on PS2. Maybe some things would have had to been scaled back, like maybe the world tendency thanks to dedicated servers wouldn't have worked. I'm not sure, but the point is, I'm pretty sure, I'm not a programmer, but from what I can tell, Demon's Souls for the most part could have existed on PS2 for what it is. Yeah, the graphics would have maybe been toned down, obviously. But even then, Demon's Souls the game wasn't sold on graphics. Now, some people might say, well, that's not fair because even though you might think Demon's Souls is great, hell, maybe you do too, it's not a cutting-edge PS3 game. Well, all right, let me give you another example. Uncharted series, AAA games. Yes, you'd have to tone down the graphics a lot, but even still, we'd say it would have top-tier graphics of the PS2 generation as a fair comparison. But as far as the gameplay goes, there's nothing there that couldn't have been done on the PS2. It's a third-person, cover-based shooter, regenerative health, cinematic experience. It could have been done. Again, SOCOM 2 is probably, as far as gameplay goes, probably has more going on, honestly, than Uncharted. I'm not trying to bash Uncharted. If you like that game, it's fine. But I'd say as far as gameplay goes, it's not really pushing the envelope. Now, some people might argue against that and say, well, you're kind of missing the point because the graphics that the PS3 allowed better production values, better cutscenes, and the higher budget that they had to work with better voice acting. That's what made the game memorable and what made it successful. Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that more games starting in the PS3 generation started to use that bigger budget as a way to sell the game, as a way to have it stand out from the competition. And while theoretically, that doesn't mean the gameplay has to be dumbed down or changed, or hell, it could even get better. That's not necessarily true in reality, because as your budget increases, you have to sell the game to more people. And what that means is you need a broader type of game that isn't going to alienate people, which means a lot of times as a creator you have to, I don't want to say sell out, but you have to kind of dumb down what your vision is. Because if your vision is too narrow and too focused on a particular thing, it's going to, it'll be too inclusive. Like Demon Souls, for the counter example, because let's face it, Demon Souls and Uncharted are very different games. Demon Souls is very focused on having a very particular type of vision and type of gameplay style. And yes, it does alienate some people because of that. But it also is very memorable for the people who like it. And I'm not saying there aren't people who really love Uncharted, but it's going to also not appeal to people who are looking for maybe a more hardcore, more, refined experience. So what I would say is to people out there is, let's not be so obsessed with technology, because when you are, you do start to lose that type of innovative streak that we once had in gaming. Now, recently it's coming back, I think, in the PS4 generation. I can't keep using Sony's consoles, but 2, 3, 4, makes it easy to get across where you're talking about, as opposed to Xbox One and Wii U. But anyway, we're actually seeing more indie games getting the spotlight than ever before. And I think that's because the AAA games budgets have kind of gotten out of control, and they're getting even more dumbed down. And we talked about this on a podcast recently, but the thing I want to get at is, I don't know if people are really ready to embrace the idea that it isn't all about the technology. It isn't all about the graphics and how many polygons you can push, because that isn't what makes... Ideas aren't born in that anymore. We're past the point where technology is allowing people to do new and better things. The PS4, what is it going to do that we couldn't have already done on the PS3 from a gameplay perspective? Hell, even from a cinematic experience, what is it doing that we didn't already have? We've had heavy cutscene based games. We've had games where you could do all these weather effects and other special little things. It's nothing we haven't already seen before. It's going to take something different to wow us now. We're going to need to make games that wow us through the gameplay, because gameplay is still something that has so many possibilities that has yet to been touched. And a lot of people would say that the point I'm getting at is diminishing returns, and I'm not exactly. Well, diminishing returns is a part of it as you get closer and closer to real life in terms of graphics and presentation. Diminishing returns does become an issue, and it has been cropping up since the PS2 genre. It's simpler than that in a way. We've just kind of gotten to the point where the technology we've had since that time has basically allowed people to just do the stuff they need to do. And, I don't want to make it sound too simple, but that's really what it comes down to. And as I said, I want to get into the VR thing, and I won't, but I will say that would be a thing that would allow us to do new stuff. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. The PS4 isn't going to let people do different things, new stuff that we haven't already done. So, I guess to conclude this little ramble is that, I'm going to be looking for games that are trying to do new things, because it's been a long time. We haven't games, at least in the console space. I know for PC it's been a little different, but in the console space we've been in an area of not exactly experimenting as much as we should. There's so many possibilities to do with gameplay and game design. I wanted to see more developers, doing risky things again. I know in business it's not always something you want to do, but that's what I want to see. I want to see risk. I want to see something new. I want to see something fresh, and I hope you guys do too. So this is MajinSweet. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts here. I'm planning to do videos like this regularly with better quality and better, video editing as time goes on. So have a good night, people.